Right, well, welcome to my Thermogourmand kitchen. And today we're going to be making, or I'm going to be making, my Cob Loaf. Cob loaves can be tricky. Not so much the actual making of the dough, that is a snap in the Thermomix. It's the shaping and keeping that shape round, because it does tend to blur out, so I'm going to show you exactly how to shape the dough to get that tension so that it won't spread out and become a flat loaf. You want it nice and round and pert. Okay, I've got one here. This has been frozen. So this is one I made the other day, and you can see it's got quite a bit of height in it. Oops, I think it's saying current frame rate is too low. Oh, I don't care. Okay, so, and it's got that beautiful shape on the top where I've cut it with the lame knife. It's light as a feather, absolutely beautiful. And I made one the other day, and I've been using it for toast in the morning. And of course it's a bit long. It has to go under the grill, but that's fine. It's beautiful, and it's still pretty good. This is about 3 days old, and it's still pretty good, and it's really delicious. And you know what? There's only 4, 5 ingredients. It's very, very basic. You don't need anything fancy in your cupboard. Probably one thing you may not have, but easily obtainable. Keeps telling me that I'm getting interrupted, but that's okay. All right. Now, I do use something special to keep that shape, and it is a Dutch oven. I actually bake my bread in a hot Dutch oven, but for those who don't have a Dutch oven, I have experimented and just used a tray, and it worked out perfectly fine, if not a little bit flatter. So this is the one that I baked on a tray, and you can see it's not quite as high as the other one. It didn't sort of explode and get that beautiful thick crust on top, but it's still fine. It's beautiful. So it can be done. Different temperatures in the oven and times, but I will put everything on my blog, which is my recipe blog, which is simply Thermogourmand, as you know, with the times and the temperatures, etc. I'll just show you my Dutch oven. Here we go. So I use this one. It's a Pyrolux brand. It's not quite as heavy as the Chasseur and the Le Creuset, but it's great. I love it. It's got the rounded bottom, but it's big enough for my loaf, and yeah, it's just lovely. It's still a little bit warm because I was going to bake a loaf for you, but I actually didn't get home in time to do 2 loaves. So I've got one that's ready proof so I can show you, but I didn't get time to do another one, so it had the second proof. But what I'll do is I'll do a video later to show you that. Okay. Alright, so first of all, we have to make the dough. And it's so simple, so easy in the Thermomix. That's why I just love it, because bread doughs need to have precise measurements, reasonably precise anyway. And of course, the Thermomix does all that for you. So here we go. We're just going across. You've got all your modes here in the TM6, remember? Oh, and I've got my machine on the glider board. So look at this. Look, lift up, slide. Isn't that brilliant? And you'll see when it's in the dough mode how stable it is being on the glider board. And if you want to get a glider board, you need to get hold of me. If you've got 2 friends watching today, you could have had one for $50, and they're $150. Right, so we're going to scales, which is my first one here. And our first ingredient is our water. Now generally you have to use lukewarm water, room temperature water. To take that guesswork out, we I'm using 250 grams. I actually warm it in the Thermomix because we can. So 250, more. It goes up by 1 gram increments because we can do high heat in the Thermomix and saute our meat and vegetables, and we can do caramel and toffee and honeycomb as well, which needs that precise measurements. So 250 grams of water. We're using 2 teaspoons of yeast, and I just try to avoid the blades when I pop the yeast in. I'm nearly out of yeast. There we go. 2 teaspoons, and it's just the dried yeast. A teaspoon of sugar to get that yeast activated, and simply go out of your scales. Whoop, there we go. Back home. 3 minutes. We're going to warm it for 3 minutes. 37. And speed 2. I'll just go up slowly just so it doesn't spit the yeast around. Speed 2. Easy as that. And it will dissolve the yeast and the sugar and warm the water to the perfect temperature. So absolutely so easy. Now, bread making, it is a bit of a skill, but it's not complicated. There are a few little rules that you need to know, and if you would like to, you can go to my website, my Linktree website, which is linked quite often. It linked various times in my on my Facebook page, and I think it's in the About Me section as well. So I've got a Linktree webpage where there are various links, and one of them is a download for my bread making recipe book. How good is that? How to make great bread in the Thermomix. All your instructions are here. Oh, there's one of my Cob Loaves. Everything about how to make bread, plus recipes. So there you go. Download that book. It is really, it was quite a bit of work, and I really enjoyed doing it. So you'll get a lot out of that, and if you have any questions, you know you can always ask me. This month, if you purchase a Thermomix, you get a lot more for your dough. So what you get is the pizza tray, because of course we make brilliant pizza dough in the Thermomix. So this is the rose gold pizza tray, not any old pizza tray. It is beautiful. It's non-stick, and it's got the holes, so you get that lovely crispiness on the base of your pizza. Plus the cupcake tin. And this is so heavy. This rose gold bakeware is just lovely. Absolutely brilliant. And non-stick again. So how good is that? Plus, down here somewhere is one of my favourite books. Now this collection is on cookie dough, but it's sometimes nice to have a book and you can see all the recipes that I'm going to try or have tried or already are my favourites. Simply delicious. You know, the cost of living is increasing so much these days. Everything is so expensive. This book can really save you money, this collection. All the meals in here are under $5 a serve. There's one I was looking at recently. It's every recipe tells you how much. So this particular one, the open fish burgers, $3.44 a serve. And look how delicious they are. And there's another one, good old bangers and mash, but not just any mash. Look, with a caramelized onion. And what's that, $2.27? You know, saving money with the Thermomix. It's not hard. Okay, we've got our beautifully warm water and yeast dissolving. I'll just whiz it around to get anything that's on the edges there. You don't need to leave this to ferment any further. We're going to do a ferment or a prove once we've added the flour and the other ingredients. So I use baker's flour here. Very important, although you can get away with plain flour, but what you need to look for in a plain flour is one that is a high protein. So if you look on the ingredients or the nutrition panel, you'll see it has protein, and the protein will need to be above 10 for a good bread dough, so a high gluten level. The gluten is the protein. Softer flours, about a 9 or an 8, they're great for cakes. But we're using baker's flour, and I get mine from fabulous shop in Albany, Mario's. They have Miller's brand flour, bread flour. Better go to my scales. I'm using 450 grams. So yes, they have Miller's flour, which is from Byford. Local wheat, local manufacturers. So there we go, 450. And I buy it in 5 kilo bags. And I like this container I keep it in. It's just a decor one, I think, from Woolies or Coles or something like that. 450. 10 to go. There we go. Lovely. Okay, I'll put you down the way so I don't trip over. And next we're going to add some salt. You can reduce the salt. I like to use 2 teaspoons. You find the commercial bread has a lot more than that, and we kind of get used to our commercial bread flavours. You can reduce it, but salt isn't only just for flavour. It also helps develop the gluten strands. I've just got the pink Himalayan salt. Now this is something you may not have. This is bread improver, and you can just get it at Woolies. It's near the yeast. By the way, keep your yeast in the fridge. Now, bread improver is a type of it's got a variety of enzymes. I use 2 teaspoons. It just helps create a nicer sort of fluffier texture, more like your bought bread. You don't absolutely need it, but it just does help, and it's not expensive. And I get this from Mario's as well. And I had to laugh, it was in quite a big pack, and it has, I think it was a 500 gram pack, and it had on the pack self-improver. So I'm waiting to see if I'm going to improve at all. Okay, salt. Now, if we're using bread improver, we must use oil or butter. It does work with the fats. I use 30 grams in here, so I've got 470, so I'm just going up to 500. You can use a bit less, but I think the Cob Loaf does need that extra little bit of oil. And of course, your Cob Loaf, you can also make those delicious dips where you scoop out the bread and you put in your mixture of cream cheese and various delicious other ingredients and bake it in the oven. Fantastic. Although once you've baked your beautiful Cob Loaf, it is pretty difficult to take all that lovely delicious bread out after you've baked it, and it's so fresh and lovely. But I tell you what, it's worth it. Okay, so I think I've got everything. Yep. And now we're going to knead the dough. 2 minutes in the Thermomix is 10 minutes by hand. I usually knead for about 5 minutes, but I'm going to knead it for less than that today, because I don't want you sitting here for 5 minutes while my dough is kneading. I'm just going to do it for 2. Alright, so what I have here is my dough that has already proved. The way I proved it, because I got home a little bit late, so it didn't go on as early as I wanted, I proved it on fermentation mode in the Thermomix. So you use your Varoma. Just go and get it on my other machine. Use aroma bowl. Okay, you can actually grease that and put the dough in there, but I prefer to wrap it in our beautiful mat, which you can get when you have a cooking experience. Just place it in the bowl, put it on fermentation mode, reduce the time to an hour. You can do 2 hours if you want to develop more flavour, and between 37 and 50. So if you're doing it for 2 hours, you would use 37. If you're doing a quick rise for an hour, you would choose 40. Don't go above 40 if you can help it. Alright, so this dough has proved, plus it had a little bit of extra proving time. Oh, hang on. You're not going to be able to see this, are you? Until I move my... There we go. So look at that. Isn't that fabulous? It's a fairly sticky dough, but we don't want to add too much flour to it. So I'm just going to, in fact, I'll use my scraper. You get the beautiful scraper from the mix shop. Just pop me down as your consultant if you don't have one. So just loosening it up a little bit, bringing it together. Just helps with the stickiness. Okay, now the all-important shaping. What I'm going to do is lift it off the mat. I'll just leave that there. You can rise your dough in the Thermomix quite easily. I've got a little bit of flour, and I'm just going to put that in one spot, not a lot. What I want to do, we're going to have 2 sections to our bread. We're going to have the sticky side, and we're going to have the not sticky side. And the not sticky side, oh, come here, will be going onto the flour. So there you go. So there we've got, move it out, spread it out. Hopefully you can see that. Okay. Press it out into a rectangle. All right, now that's the way to tell if your dough is ready, if it's proven. If the dents stay in there, it means it's proved. If they pop back out, it needs more time. You're often when you're, if you're rolling out dough and it keeps shrinking back, that means it's not ready. But this one is definitely ready. All right, so what we're going to do is pull out our dough and then press it in. Turn it round. If you've got a little, make sure it doesn't stick on the bottom. If you need to put a bit more flour there, do so. Pull out and stick in. Turn it round. It's starting to stick there, so I'll just put a bit of flour. Pull and turn. Pull and turn. Pull and turn. Keep going until you have this gorgeous, tight little ball. We need this to be as tight as possible because we need the tension on top so that it's not going to spread out. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Now, I don't want any flour, what I'm going to do now, so I'm going to use my scraper. And we're going to continue shaping it and tightening. So I'm just bringing it towards me. Turning and shaping. Cupping and shaping. Sliding it on the mat. Slide forward. Okay, it's very therapeutic. It keeps telling me the video is getting interrupted. I hope that's not the case. All right, so I've got this gorgeous little ball. Now, what I normally do, I'll just pop you back up. What I would normally do now is leave it to rise on a tray, which I have here, on my beautiful rose gold tray, and some baking paper, and you can see I've used this before. All right, so I will pop it on here, and if it's difficult to lift up, just use the, oops, where are we? I'll show you again. Just use this to lift it and gently pop it onto the tray. Okay, now I normally rise it in a bowl. Okay, so I would have oiled the bowl. This is the first rise, oiled the bowl, and then popped my dough in. Now once I've tipped it out and I've shaped it, I would now go like that. Now this is if I'm baking it on the tray. Okay, either way, either way, even if I'm going to bake it in the, whoops, where are we? Even if I'm going to bake it in the Dutch oven, I'd still do this. Okay. Now the tricky thing next, once it's risen, is to use your lame. You can get these at the mix shop. I've had this for a long time, and it uses the old-fashioned razor blade. It's very, very fine. When your dough has risen and hopefully puffed up and not out, you would sprinkle it with some flour and do some slicing along there and along there. Because we've got that beautiful tension on the dough, we need to actually release some of it so that the dough can rise. And you can see how you get that shaping on the top by doing that. And you'll be quite surprised how it will rise beautifully in the oven. So you do that prior to popping it in the oven. About 20 minutes through halfway through your proof, you need to heat your Dutch oven at 210 degrees. Okay, really hot. So when you take it out of the oven, you need to be very careful. You need to be careful to take the lid off. Then you lift up the baking paper with the dough, gently pop it into the Dutch oven, pop the lid on, 10 to 15 minutes at 210, then take the lid off carefully and another 35 minutes. Now that's my oven. Everybody's oven is different. You may need to experiment with yours. So that's how we get that gorgeous, gorgeous, dark, crusty, beautiful cob loaf. I'm going to leave that to do its thing. And we've got our dough here. So we're going to pop it down. Now you can twist the base of your Thermomix to get your dough out. Easy peasy. There we go. And yeah, it's beautiful dough. Absolutely beautiful. Still lovely and warm. So when I take it out, I do a little bit of manipulation with it up, just because I love the feel of it anyway. And I do kind of what I would do when I'm shaping, just to getting that little bit of tension. Now on the dough, turn it over, roll it, pop it in, either put it in your oiled bowl or put it in the mat. Okay, fold the mat under and leave it to rise for around an hour. Okay, an hour and a half. You know, you can overproof. Don't leave it for 2 hours in a very warm spot. You'll actually smell alcohol if it's overproofed and your dough's shot. I'm sorry, it's no good. If you can actually prove overnight in the fridge, that's another way to really develop beautiful flavour. You'll need to let it come to room temperature before you shape it to prove it again. And you can do your second prove in the fridge as well. I've done that before. And you really do get a great prove overnight. Depends how long you've got to make bread. Now make sure that you do allow yourself enough time. All right, so you know, if you have to go out somewhere, plan it around your bread making. Enjoy bread making. It is so rewarding. Your family will think you're amazing when you make this beautiful cob loaf. And I'd love for you to tell me all about it and show me yours. I think that's all I had to say, pretty much. Oh, this month, or just starting today, is 36 months free, interest free is back on again. Okay, now don't forget there's T's and C's involved in that, but if you want to know more about that, I think it works out at what, $16.97 a week? My goodness, that is amazing. So you can have a TM6 on your bench for $16.97 a week. Of course, you can pay off more than that if you want to. Let me know if that floats your boat. Okay, I think that's all I have to say. I hope that you enjoyed that, and if there's any questions, please pop them down below. And I'll see you next Tuesday. I think I'll cook something out of the Simply Delicious next Tuesday. I might make butter as well, show you how we make butter. Bring 2 friends, then qualifies as a cooking experience, but I must have the details of those 2 friends for it to qualify. You can get yourself a glider board or a beautiful mat or the great thermo servers. All right, so hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday, same time, same place. Bye. All right, so we've got the really, really hot Dutch oven. It's been heating for about 15 minutes at 210, that's Celsius. And I've got my dough that has been rising beautifully under the glass dome, and it has pretty much doubled. Now what we do now to get that lovely feature on top is we sprinkle some flour over. Okay, just a little bit, and we use the lame. Okay, remember that razor blade, and the reason we're doing this is because we need to let that carbon dioxide come out, so all the gases come out, so to allow the bread to rise, and do this fairly quickly. All right, a lame is better than a knife because it doesn't drag. You can see how it's already splitting open. Probably a bit wide there, but that's okay. I'll just do that one again. That's better. There, and maybe there. And you can do any patterns you like. Now, the tricky bit is to get it into the hot Dutch oven. I'm going to squeeze up the corners very gently. Take it over and not drop it in. Place it in. Pop the lid on, remember that's hot. 35 minutes with the lid on, roundabout. I will pour that in there, whoops. 35 minutes in at 210 with the lid on, and then 10 to 15 with the lid off. And I'll show you what it looks like at the end.